It's new shoe day, one of the best days of the week, and in this video we are opening up a box of Saucony Peregrine 14s, taking a look at them, see how they compare to the last models, and then putting them on, hitting the trails, and seeing how they do for that first run. So stick around to the end, I'll give you my first run takeaways, but now, let's take a look. Hello, and welcome. My name is Alexander Tucker, and this is my channel, place for all things ultra running and adventure travel, where we dig into 15 years of ultra running experiences and share stories from around the world. So hit subscribe to stay in the journey with me for gear reviews, training suggestions, ultra races, and adventurous experiences near and far. As I said, in this video, we are digging into the Saucony Peregrine 14, opening up the box, taking a look under the hood, and seeing how these shoes compare to the last models. Some slight history about the Peregrine 14. I have been running in this shoe for basically about 15 years now. It might have been the first trail shoe that I put on my feet when I first started running trails. Probably not the first. I'm sure the first was just a pair of cross trainers or even a pair of Converse where I just put them on and hit the trail and didn't know what I was doing. But fast forward 15 years and I've been running in the Peregrine and using every single iteration of their shoe. Some up, some down, but I have found something to enjoy in just about every single model of their shoe. I find that they are a great middle of the road price point, something that's reasonably priced, not overpriced, but also not the bottom of the barrel, that I can get a lot of miles in, can beat up and fully put through the ringer of any trail that I hit. It's entirely possible for me to put in about 400 miles into a pair of Peregrines. I just this weekend ran a 50K in these bad boys, and they get beat up, let me tell you. This is a pair of 12s, and they might be on their last legs, especially since bugs are crawling all over them. Let's put these down. These are gross. You don't want to see these. I may have mentioned this in the videos of the past if you've ever heard me talk about them, but I find that Saucony is a great shoe for my foot. I do have a bit of a wider foot, which can get a little tight for some of their shoes, but I like that they're a 4mm drop, keeping it relatively neutral. And like I said, they're a durable shoe that gives me a lot of distance. So let's take a look. Yeah, it's a shoe. How about that? You know, sometimes I don't really know why we do this. Talking about a shoe into a camera is probably the most boring thing that you could find to do with your free time. Hopefully you can find it a little helpful, and if you do, hit that like button. So first takeaways, we're going to start with the top, work our way to the middle, and then down to the bottom. We're talking about the upper here. This is a new upper. The mesh is different from the 13 and the 14. They've progressed in their mesh from the 12 to the 13 and now the 14. Overall, a very similar shoe to the Peregrine 13. Still has a heel tag, still has a very standard lacing here. You look, the lacing on the side all has reinforced rubber so that you're not pulling out the lacing. The upper laces on the top here do have extra webbing, basically an extra layer to give you reinforcement on the eye hole, as well as give you the ability to open it up a little bit more if you have a bigger foot on top or a thicker ankle or even thicker socks. Gives you the chance to open it up without feeling too tight. Now that being said, a nice traditional lacing like this will give you good ankle lock so that you can handle the down, so you're not smashing your toes in the front. From the front to back and top to bottom, it does have reinforcements of the rubber where the upper meets the lower, and that's good for a few different reasons. One, it reinforces the attachment to the webbing so you don't get a breakdown of where the webbing meets the bottom, which gives you just a lot more life of the shoe. It also gives you an extra added layer of protection when you talk about dust or moisture that can come into the webbing and get into your shoe. So it's only about a ½ an inch right here, but that is new for the 14 and could give you a little bit of extra life in your shoe. It does look like it is the exact same toe box, something that could be too narrow for some people, but seeing as it is a standard width in the front and a standard shoe sizing, then the average person will find this pretty comfortable in the toe box. Going on the inside, the tongue does have attachments to the side, which will help deflect material from going on the inside of the shoe in through the tongue. But it doesn't cover the whole thing. There are openings down at the bottom, is only the side, but it will really help keep that tongue in place and keep materials out. It is a rather thick and cushy tongue too, which will help protect your feet from the laces on the top if you happen to tie your laces really tight. Working from the upper down to the outsole, we see what the Peregrine is known for, the deep and strong, intense lugs here. These are 5mm lugs, which will give you great traction in all sorts of terrain. Specifically, some middle of the road grit, sand, downhills, uphills, really grabbing hold and giving you traction where you need it. Now in the extreme ice and extreme wet, you probably need something a little bit more intense than this, but for most trails, these lugs will give you all the all-terrain support that you need. In addition to that, as we look through here, we do see the rock plate. Now this is technically not a rock plate. I'm seeing the exact same material that they had on the 13. The Peregrine switched from a rock plate a few years ago to give you a little bit more lightness, and instead they use a thick fabric material. You can actually see the fabric material right there. It's patterned and striped and checked like that. But it's not a hard rock plate. What it is an added layer of protection that goes from the toe all the way to the midsole and gives you that security, extra layer of protection when you're on the real rocky and technical terrain. Now it stops in the midsole because you don't need it in the back. There is a thickness of the heel here that does not mean that you need the rock plate in the back. Looking side by side of the 14 with the 13, this is the exact same shoe in its specifications that it has always been, or nearly always been. It is still a 4mm drop from heel to toe, going from 28 to 24 millimeters. Now, if you want something a little thicker for longer distances, Saucony does have the Exodus Ultra, and that adds a few extra millimeters of protection and thickness for your distance running. What you can see is the size is just about the same. This shoe is the identical shoe on the outsole. They are using the same Power Track sole that they used on the 13, which was a different change from the 12. Looks to be identical between these two. So from top to bottom, front to back, the biggest change that you're going to see is in the webbing. A very different webbing that they use here. The mesh material is just a different kind. We'll have to wait and see if it is an improvement on this. I didn't ever notice much of a weakness in the meshing of this material compared to the 12, which was a pretty weak mesh material. And now the 14 has a significantly different one from that. So we'll see how that does. And then additionally, you'll see the extra ½ inch of overlay here for added protection and probably a little bit more life in the shoe. It is still a light shoe as far as trail shoes go, 9.8 ounces for the men's shoe and 8.2 for the women's shoe. So overall, pretty similar, not all that many differences. But one of the things that is jumping out to me is the stiffness in the heel. I do a lot of up and down hikes, doing a lot of crossover between flat and steep grade on the trails in the mountains. And when you do that, there's a lot of transition period from running flat to your foot and heel angling up like that. And when you do that, there's a lot of pull up on the shoe. And I feel a little bit of stiffness in the shoe. It doesn't feel all that different from the last one, but I did have a little bit of an issue with the rigid heel in the last shoe, and I'm wondering if that could be an issue today too. So what we're gonna do now is throw a pair of these babies on, hit the trails, and I'll give you my first run reactions. Let's go. All right, so here we are. That's about an hour's worth of running, 4.5 miles, some hiking, some running, trail time, getting muddy, getting wet up here on Montecito Lookout. Let's take a minute. Let's talk about these shoes. I will do, when all is said and done, about an hour and 45 in these things, about 8 miles. As you can see, it's pretty technical, hilly terrain. So I really try and throw everything at these to test the shoes. They're already kind of mudded up and gunked up and filthy by running through creeks and sandy, dusty trails. Really trying to put them through the ringer to see how they go. The verdict is they're great shoes. I'm really happy with them so far. If you have run in the Peregrine 13s and enjoyed those, then you will love these shoes. They are essentially a material upgrade without really changing much of the footprint. So if the footprint worked for you, then this shoe will also work for you. Getting through in and out of those creek beds and getting my feet a little damp, they do dry out nice and quickly. So if you have a moisture wicking sock, I don't imagine that you'll have any issues with a shoe like this. If you like getting wet, if you like getting dirty, I was able to keep the sand and rocks out of my shoe. I do lace my shoes up at the ankle nice and tight by using a heel lock lacing technique, which I can show in another video at a later date. But going up and down the steep grade of the Los Padres here, I don't really feel much of a sliding or friction at the bottom of my shoe. I still have lots of room in my toe box to feel loose in my toes, which I also enjoy. Nothing like feeling the smash of your toes going downhill. The only thing that I noticed so far is this heel that I mentioned, the stiff heel. I'm feeling a little bit of rubbing at the top part of my heel where the lower meets the upper part of the shoe. What I mean by that is it just feels a little stiff, so there's less mobility in the shoe when you're moving ups and down steep grade. I did notice a little bit of rubbing right about here where it goes from firm to soft, which means that potentially over time you could get a little bit of a blister back there. From what I'm feeling right now, it could be an issue if I'm going up miles and miles of steep hill. I would give these Peregrines a 4.5 out of 5, docking it a little bit for the heel rub and basically because they haven't changed anything. But if the shoe fits, keep wearing it. That is my verdict. I'd say 4.5 out of 5 stars. If you like Sauconys and have run in Peregrines before, I think you're gonna enjoy these shoes. But I do wanna hear your thoughts. Please leave your thoughts from your experience of running in the Peregrine 14s in the comments below. Continue to follow along in gear reviews, adventure, and ultra running races by subscribing to this channel. Oof, these bugs are getting at me. I'll catch up with you next time. Safe travels, happy trails. Take care.